Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek Jain. I am Director at Amica Immigration. Today I am going to touch upon a very important topic, employment verification letter. So this is the letter which is needed for permanent residence, and this is the letter based on which your knock code is determined. So it does not matter when you are creating your express entry profile or whatever you can claim as your knock code. When it comes to immigration officer, the way they determine your knock code is based on your job responsibilities, and your job responsibilities are determined by employment verification letter. It's not always easy for everyone to get the right employment verification letter in line with what IRCC expects. So what are some of the key areas that people struggle, that their employer blatantly refuses to give them the employment verification letter, or at times it can happen that the employment verification letter is not in line with the guidelines that IRCC provides. And then third thing can be that you have the employment verification letter, it's in line with what IRCC expects, but the job responsibilities in the letter are ambiguous and may not directly map to a knock code. So today I'll talk about some of the things that we can do to alleviate those concerns and make sure that we are clearly establishing our knock code in eyes of the immigration officer. Because failing to do that, we can be questioned and officer may suggest an alternative knock code. Now that knock code may be in the right tier category, or if say you are going for STEM category selection, maybe outside of the category. So it's quite important that we are able to establish our job responsibilities beyond any reasonable doubt, and that we don't leave any particular room for officer to interpret it any different. Let's briefly touch upon the importance of the employment verification letter. The primary purpose of the employment verification letter is to prove the genuineness of the experience that you are claiming in your express entry or any other permanent residence application. So how would officer determine whether your experience is genuine or not? Yes, there are multiple other ways and multiple other proofs that we'll have to provide, but the employment verification letter becomes one single most important proof that you have to provide to the officer that your experience is genuine experience. Coming to the main topic, what if obtaining the employment verification letter becomes a tough task for you? Say your HR or your company is not supportive enough to provide you the letter, or company itself may have shut down, or the letter they are providing is not in the format and does not have the necessary information that you need. What next? So the first advice is that make sure that you keep proofs of all the communication that you are having with your present or past employer when it comes to obtaining the employment verification letter. It's important because when we are not able to get something that IRCC needs in the format IRCC needs, it means that now we'll have to prove it using very different other documentations. And whenever we are doing that, the first thing we have to prove to IRCC is that we tried to obtain the letter in the format IRCC desires, but the employer clearly refused, or employer is unable to give you the letter in the format that we are seeking. So that's the reason that what we suggest to our clients and what we'll suggest you is that whenever you are in such a situation, make sure that you are keeping the documentary proof, which mostly in this case would be emails, that you tried to get the documentary proof in the right format, but you were unable to do so. So we have now established that we have not been able to get the letter, or we have not been able to get the red letter in the right format. We have tried, we have failed, and we have taken the right proofs that it's not working for us. So what's the next step? Next step is to try and establish the job responsibilities based on few other different documents. And remember that the purpose of the employment verification letter, one is to establish the responsibility so that we can determine the right knock code, but also it is to determine that the employment was genuine. So let's first start with how do we establish that your employment was genuine. So for that, what we can use are your offer letters from past, we can use your pay stubs, we can use your tax forms, like in case of India it is form 16, in case of Canada it is T4, and then we can rely upon some of the performance reviews letters or emails if you have. We can rely upon some of the promotion letters or emails if you have those. So these become some of the very genuine proofs of determining that your employment was genuine. And in some cases, some of these documents may even have the responsibilities stated, which then makes our jobs easier. And that this remains subjective from case to case, whether in your case the documents that documents that we just mentioned, or if you're able to collate the right documents which have all the information with regards to proving genuineness of your employment, and then also with regards to the responsibilities of different roles that you were playing for the organization. Using all of the above documentation that we just mentioned, if we are still not able to establish clearly the responsibilities, now that we are able to establish the genuineness of your employment, but we are still struggling to clearly identify and determine and present the responsibilities that you had at the organization. So in that case, what can also help is getting the letter from your supervisor, preferably on the company letterhead. And even if not, email can still suffice and can be one of the very genuine proofs that we can use to determine the responsibilities that you were playing in a particular role in the organization. Then we can rely upon reference letters from your customers, clients. Maybe if you have certain appreciation mail, which can help determine the extent of your responsibilities at the organization. And if nothing else is working and we are not able to get any of the letters or the documents that we just mentioned, what we'll have to rely on is a self-affidavit, wherein we'll be declaring that what were the responsibilities, what were the roles, pretty much the employment verification letter written by us. Okay, and then what that helps us with that we can establish with IRCC, okay, that we have not been able to get the right documents from our employer, that we tried to reach out to certain other supervisors, but we have still not been able to get the right document. So this is our declaration. And like we mentioned previously, let's make sure that we are keeping the proofs that all the efforts that we are making to reach out to different people to get the right documents that will help support our permanent residence application. Alright, let's summarize what we just discussed. First step is to try and obtain the letter from the employer in the format IRCC expects. Failing to do so, our fallback option was first taking the proof that we were not able to obtain that letter for genuine reasons, and then we move on to the options like pay stubs, tax forms, and promotion letters, any intermediate performance letters or letters from customers and clients to prove the genuineness of our employment and even possibly the responsibilities. But proving genuineness is one part of the equation. To fulfill the second part of the equation, what we try to do is get letters from our managers, from our supervisors, to determine the exact scope and details of our responsibilities in different roles at the organization. Failing to do that, we again collate the proof that we reached out to different people, yet we were not able to obtain the right letters and the right references to prove our responsibilities. And then we switch to our last option, which is the self-declaration. So in our declaration, we break down the periods of our different roles. We put the responsibilities as expected by IRCC, and then that becomes our final proof that this is what we were doing. But then you will realize that because this is a self-declaration, we still should be relying on our offer letters and other documents to prove beyond doubt that what we are claiming is genuine. And this still becomes a subjective situation, as you would understand, and which is where we strongly suggest to take our services, and where we can really help you and guide you to make sure that IRCC does not treat your case differently. They do not question the knock code that you determined earlier, or they don't start questioning the genuinity of the documents that you are collecting and presenting to the IRCC.